I have a great challenge here today, and that is to help all of you grasp something of what you just heard and make it your own. Out of all of that supernatural first century imagery and symbolism, to get a hold of something that you can apply to your life now. So I'm going to jump right in, because as you know, there are so many ways to understand Holy Scripture. It has so many layers that we could approach it in many ways. But I want to get right to the heart of the matter. So how do we make our heart filled with joy and faith and hope, confronted by a strange experience, a mystical experience like this? So let's see what we can do. Whenever you hear that Jesus is going up on a high mountain, right there, you know it is a teaching, it is a symbol. You've heard me say it before. The idea of going up to the top of a mountain is to encounter God, to get close to the holy, to enter a stillness and peace that is away from the world. Have you all been on a mountain? Have you seen the glorious panorama that come from the top of the mountain? It gives you new perspective. And suddenly your troubles, your problems become a little small. And so the mountain is the symbol of entering into contact with something great. And so we know something's going to happen.
Draws me in, I have no choice. As I rise through the air, your echo grows. I see time stand still as I'm watching the world below. I can hear you
And he takes Peter, James, and John, those more mature, dedicated disciples who come with him on those special occasions. And you should know that right before this event, the famous moment when Peter has recognized through spiritual intuition that this is not merely the rabbi from Nazareth, the great teacher, the good friend, the holy man, the healer. This is the one, the Messiah, spoken of for centuries. Can you imagine the excitement? Every generation for several millennia have been waiting for this miracle of God, where someone would appear among us who would be a bridge between our fragile mortal lives and the eternal, would incarnate the possibility of that relationship. That's the Messiah. The trouble is, they all assume he'd come on a white horse and fix everything, and we'd live in a just world and everything be fine. This Messiah gives them a totally different picture. A really troubling picture. You know the picture. It's Lent. It ends up with 9-inch nails. Total failure. Total misunderstanding. Total betrayal. How is this possible? Isn't the power of God enough to bring enlightenment and joy in the world? Power of God is coming in humility to be among us and show us the way. So they're all pretty shocked, as we could be if we weren't so used to this story. And then this happened. So in one sense, this moment of mystery and wonder is a validation of who Yeshua, God, Joseph really is. Because you see, that light that pours out of him, that light is a quality of the eternal coming through him. That light shows that he is more than mortal, that he is connected to another dimension. Which begs the question, why didn't he just go in that other dimension and avoid the horrors of the mortal? For you, for me. And along with that, we have this strange business of Moses and Elijah. We have to understand it as the Hebrews of the first century would. Because you know Moses and Mount Sinai, remember that one? The first grand revelation of something about the nature of the one God. Moses went up a mountain, took 3 people, gone 6 days, cloud. This is a parallel that is telling everybody who understands it that this is the quantum fulfillment of what started way back when. Moses, the lawgiver, the great teacher, Elijah, the first of the great prophets. The Jews spoke of the law and the prophets, and that meant all the teaching of Judaism, all those beautiful things that you may love in songs and other passages that have touched your life, I hope. So all that was great about this chosen people is present. And you'll remember that when Moses went up that mountain, we were told you cannot look at God and live. And in this case, not only is Jesus a living, God is coming through him. Now the Orthodox consider this a very critical teaching, second only to resurrection and crucifixion. And they speak of marvelous human beings who also have had auras of light that came from beyond. So I don't want to go too far down that road and blow anybody's mind, but there are factual moments, such as in the 19th century when Seraphim of Sarov, the St. Francis of Russia, shone like light to the man he was talking to as they spoke on these holy matters. Mystery. We have forgotten mystery. We have forgotten our true source and identity. We have forgotten to see the divine in each other's eyes. But let me make it personal like I promised I would. What this really is an example of a magnificent experience. Surely, a good number of you have had a moment in your life or two where you know you were in the presence of something special. You know the peace coming into your heart was help from above. You know that you were saved from something terrible. You know that you were having a high moment, tasting and seeing how good is your Maker. All of us have had that. All of us hunger for it, whether we know it or not. There is nothing in this world that compares to that.
Draws me in, I have no choice. As I rise through the air, your echo grows. I see time stand still as I watch in the world below. I can hear you
And so just like Peter, we want to hold on to that peace and joy. We don't want to fall back into the ordinary and the boring and the mean-spiritedness and the dull. We want that connection with the infinite. And that's why Peter doesn't know what he's doing. It cannot be held on to. It can only be delighted in when it is given to us. Then we're given the next piece, which is even more realistic after this extraordinary experience. When that cloud comes in, and friends, when that cloud comes in, it's not special effects. It's not weird supernatural stuff. Idea of the cloud comes from Mesopotamia, from China, from India. It represents the ineffable, what we cannot name, what we cannot see. The cloud represents that spirit of the uncreated one. And the voice in the cloud wasn't microphones, it wasn't loudspeakers. You know, the Hebrews have a name for it. Daughter of the whisper. Cosmic hum, a resonance for those who listen. For those who listen. It may not be a voice with words, but it is a message we can receive if we are attentive. Just like the disciples, the translation throws us way off when it tells us that they were tired, but when they were awake. So they're tired, but when they were awake. And it throws us off, because what the Greek says is, when they were fully awake, then they saw. You know how I have shared with you what sleep and waking means in terms of consciousness of God. When they were in their senses at the height of their capacity to receive spiritual sight, they saw, just as you can see. You can step out there today. You can see the invisible in the visible. You can see beauty in the ordinary. You can see the presence of the holy. If you want to be conscious of the sacred as often as we can, we have to be awake to it. And once it's seen, once this incredible experience is yours, what happens next? See how realistic these teachings are. We have to go back down the mountain. We have to come back to ordinary life. We lose contact with the glory, the presence. We enter into our world, and what do we find? Bickering, conflict, the inability to deal with negativity and evil, ugliness. All those things we know so well and think constitute reality. Which is why the Master himself, in frustration, has to say, how long must I be with you? You faithless and perverse generation. And friends, the word perverse is a bad translation. See if this means anything to you. You faithless generation, turning every which way, ununified, going this way, distracted, and over here and over there, unable to center on the reality of God. Is that not a perfect description? And it's because of our fragmentation, with this way one day and this way another day, that there is bickering and conflict and inability to deal with the negative. And it is our call as disciples of today, as spiritual people today, to come down that mountain and keep enough of that experience with us, that we are instruments of peace, that we can bring down the level of tragedy and misery and negativity that fills the ordinary world and knows nothing about the high mountain experience. So for all of us who have had a taste of what I'm talking about, know that even in going back down and losing contact, that contact will come again. You will be grace-filled again, and you are called to carry it into the ordinary and make it extraordinary. Your knowledge now that God is real, that our reality is filled with wonder and mystery, and that we are a conduit of goodness and light in this world. That light doesn't just shine from Jesus. He is the first fruit of many. It is our light waiting to come forth.